The land had its own kind of silence, and that silence was the whole reason I stayed. Not city quiet, not empty quiet, but the kind that breathes. Morning dew clung to the grass, crickets whispered from the brush, and the hills behind my shed caught the sunrise like they were brand new. I stood on my porch with a hot cup of coffee, my old Shepherd Mix Mabel stretched at my boots, and for a few minutes, life was exactly how I'd paid for it. 10 acres. Cash. No HOA. No rules. Just peace. That peace snapped like a dry branch under a boot. I heard it before I saw it. Heavy steps on soil that wasn't theirs. Metal clinking. Voices that didn't belong. At first I figured maybe a lost hunter or a county worker checking the easement road. But when I looked up the ridge, my stomach tightened. 3 men. Bright neon vests cutting through the morning mist like warning signs. One of them was setting up a yellow tripod with a laser scope. The others carried poles, tablets, gear that had nothing to do with fixing fences or checking creeks. They weren't near the easement. They weren't even close to the boundary. They were already deep on my land, walking like they owned it. A man gets to know his soil after 6 years. You feel it under your boots. You know where it crunches dry and where it stays soft near the creek. And I knew, without a doubt, they didn't belong. I started up the hill, coffee sloshing in my thermos, each step heavier than the last. As I got closer, their voices carried. Talk of coordinates, benchmarks, alignments. Words that sounded official but felt like theft. One of them looked up. Big guy. Sunburned neck. His vest read Harper Engineering Group. He blinked at me like I was the problem. Morning, I said. What the hell are you doing on my land? He shifted his weight and glanced at the younger guy beside him. We're doing initial topo measurements for the C4 expansion. Future community pool and parking access. The words hung in the air. Community pool. Parking. On my land. You're not listening, I said. This is private property. The younger one stepped forward with a folder. Voice smooth like he'd practiced it. We've got authorization, sir, signed off by Green Peaks Reserve. I almost laughed. Green Peaks was the HOA across the road. Perfect lawns. Mailbox rules. I wasn't part of it. Never had been. That was the whole point. Then he turned the folder around. It was a color-coded zoning map. Parcel C. According to their paper, my ridge wasn't mine anymore. My vegetable beds were marked as a parking lot. My mother's old house showed up as an access road. Where did you get this? I asked. Filed with the county, he said. Part of the Green Peaks expansion plan. Something cold settled in my chest. I didn't shout. Didn't argue. I turned and walked back down the hill, past the chicken coop, past the stacked firewood, and into my house. The Remington was where it always was. Clean. Oiled. Ready. I didn't load it. Didn't need to. I slung it over my shoulder and walked back out. At the edge of the field, where their tire tracks had already bitten into my soil, I stopped. You've got 30 seconds to get off my land, I said, or I'm calling this in as armed trespassing. The young one went pale. The older one raised his hands fast. No need for that. We're just doing our jobs. 20 seconds. They scrambled. One tripped over the tripod. Another dropped his tablet case in the dirt. Gravel sprayed as they piled into their vans and tore back down the slope. But the sunburned one lingered, leaning across the open door. This wasn't our call, he said. They already filed something with the county. Then they were gone. I stood there alone again, the Remington heavy on my shoulder, my coffee cold. The silence came back, but it didn't feel the same. It felt thin, fake. By noon, I was parked outside the county recorder's office, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Inside, the place smelled like old paper and toner. A woman at the desk tapped at her keyboard, then looked up with a tight smile. Someone from Land Records will need to speak with you. That wasn't good. A man named Greg Miller sat me down in a windowless office. Shirt too tight, tie loose like he didn't care anymore. He scrolled on his monitor like my life was an inconvenience. According to our system, he said, Your parcel has been temporarily reassigned to Green Peaks Reserve HOA under administrative transfer. What does that mean? I asked. It means your land is under provisional HOA oversight until ownership is verified. I am the owner, he shrugged. That's not what the system says. Who challenged it? HOA Legal Department. When I walked back into the sunlight with a manila envelope under my arm, the sky felt harsher. Inside that envelope was the request that turned my land into a colored square. At the bottom was a signature. Karen Worthington, HOA President. And that's when I knew the surveyors were just the beginning. The drive back felt longer than it should have. 10 miles of cracked county road, pine shadows leaning over the asphalt, like they knew something I didn't. The manila envelope sat on the passenger seat, heavy as a brick. Every bump rattled the papers inside, like they were laughing at me. Legal ink carrying more weight than 6 years of sweat. When I pulled into my gravel drive, the air had thickened with heat. The crickets were gone. That should have been my first warning. Mabel barked once, sharp and low, the way she only does when something's wrong. That's when I saw the mailbox. The door hung twisted, half ripped off. Papers were scattered across the ditch like trash after a storm. Bills, flyers, junk mail. And right in the middle, torn clean in half, was my county land assessment. Acreage. Value. Improvements. Ripped like someone wanted it erased. I scanned the tree line. Nothing moved. The east gate was next. The latch was bent. Fresh splinters on the post where someone had forced it. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with anger so clean it felt sharp. Inside the house, I grabbed the trail cam cards and slid them into my laptop. Frame after frame flashed by. Deer. Shadows. Then I saw it, a hooded figure crouched at my mailbox, rifling through papers, head snapping up when headlights passed. They bolted like a scared animal. They weren't stealing packages, they were hunting information. That night, I locked everything down. New padlocks. Fresh batteries in every camera. Signs on every gate. Private land. No HOA jurisdiction. Trespassers prosecuted. And, just to make a point, I parked the ATV on the rise with the Remington strapped in plain sight. Let 'em see it. By sunset, the hills were quiet again. Too quiet. I sat on the porch with a bourbon sweating in my hand, Mabel pressed against my leg, eyes fixed on the road. The kind of watch you learn when you know trouble is coming. Trouble didn't wait long. 2 days later, I was filling up at the Sinclair station when my phone buzzed. It was Rhonda, my neighbor down the road. Her voice was tight. "Jack, there's a bulldozer on your property." I dropped the nozzle. By the time I tore into my driveway, dust hung in the air like smoke. A full-sized yellow doublezer sat on my slope, engine growling low. 3 men in hard hats moved around it, pulling brush, marking lines. Chalk cut straight through my vegetable beds, straight through the spot where my mother's mulberry tree still stood. They didn't even look up. I didn't yell. I went inside, opened the gun safe, and took out the Remington. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady, too steady. As I stepped back onto the porch, tires crunched behind me. 2 sheriff's cruisers slid in like this was routine. Deputy Frank Wheeler stepped out, hand near his belt. "Put the gun down, Jack. Step away from it." "They're tearing up my land," I said. "They cut my fence." According to dispatch, he said, "This is an authorized development site under Green Peaks HOA." That word again, authorized. I lowered the barrel and set the rifle on the porch rail. "I've got cameras. Everything's recorded." Frank's voice softened just a hair. "If there's a dispute, you need to take it to court. Right now, they've got temporary authority." Temporary. Like destruction could be undone. When the cruisers left, the dozer kept working. Slower now. Nervous glances toward the porch. I sent my drone up and caught everything. Fence cut. Signs planted. The scoop tearing through soil that had never belonged to anyone but me. By nightfall, my lawyer Daniel had filed an emergency injunction. Court order. All activity halted. I stapled it to my gate myself, county seal shining in my flashlight beam like armor. By morning, it was gone, crumpled in the ditch, tire tracks over it. And nailed to the gate in its place was a fresh HOA notice. Community Improvement Initiative. Phase 1 authorized. They weren't hiding anymore. That night, Mabel growled me out of bed. Low, deep, wrong. I checked the cameras. The shed feed glitched. Then, movement. The padlock was busted. Inside, the small fireproof cabinet was open. My deeds. Surveys. Papers scattered like someone had gone through them fast. It wasn't theft. It was a warning. I heard movement behind me and spun just in time to see a figure vault the fence and vanish into the trees. I didn't fire. Evidence mattered more than blood. The deputy who showed up shrugged like it was nothing, took notes, promised to file it. By morning, I had every document backed up off-site. Cloud. Copies. Redundancy. If they wanted my paper gone, they were going to need a miracle. Then the email came. No subject. No name. Just an address and 6 words. I'm not part of this. Come alone. I knew it was a risk. But after bulldozers and break-ins, I wasn't ignoring it. The office was small. Gray. Smelled like old carpet and fear. A woman let me in quick, eyes darting. Name's Jen Walker, she whispered. I work for Karen Worthington. She slid a flash drive across the desk. They faked everything, Jack. The maps. The transfer. She forged your signature. She said once the bulldozer touched your land, you'd fold. I held the drive like it might burn. This makes you a witness, I said. She nodded. Better than being an accomplice. When I walked out, the fight changed shape. Because now I didn't just have anger. I had proof. Daniel didn't smile when I handed him the flash drive. He didn't need to. His eyes did all the talking. He plugged it in, scrolled once, then leaned back in his chair like the air had been knocked out of him. This isn't a dispute anymore, he said. This is a crime. By sunset, we had filed for a temporary restraining order. Court stamped. County sealed. All activity on my land was to stop immediately. No surveyors. No bulldozers. No HOA foot on my soil. Any violation meant contempt of court. For the first time in days, the construction lights across the road stayed dark. I stapled the order to my gate myself, hands steady, breath slow. It felt like armor. Like paper finally meant something again. By morning, it was gone. I found it crumpled in the ditch, tire tracks pressed over the judge's seal. And nailed in its place was another HOA notice, clean and bold, like a dare. That was the moment I stopped waiting for the system to save me. I went loud. A buddy from the VFW put me in touch with a small property rights podcast out of Denver. I sent them the footage, the documents, the forged signature, the bulldozer rolling through my fence. They aired it under a simple title, Veteran Fights HOA Land Grab. I told the story plain, no shouting, no drama, just facts. It exploded. Emails poured in from all over the country. Farmers, widows, retired couples. Same story, different zip codes, HOAs, redrawing lines, taking inches, then acres. Most people folded. I hadn't. The local news showed up next. Channel 7. Camera pointed straight at my broken fence, my uprooted tree behind me like a wound that hadn't healed yet. This is about ownership, I said into the lens. Real ownership, not lines on a map someone changes when you're not looking. That night, Karen Worthington's name lit up every community group in Green Peaks. Questions. Accusations. Calls for audits. Then the leaks started. HOA meeting minutes. Budget votes hiding land grabs. Emails where Karen joked about bulldozing holdouts. All of it hit a blog by morning. 2 days later, there was a knock on my door. Thomas Gardner stood there, shoulders slumped, a folder in his hands. He'd been on the HOA board since the beginning. Retired engineer, trusted Karen. She told us it was routine, he said. County aligned. I didn't read close enough. He slid the folder across my table. Memos. Votes. My parcel name buried in legal fog. I'll testify, he said. I owe you that. The hearing came fast. The courthouse smelled like old carpet and nerves. Karen sat across the room in a sharp blazer, confidence cracking at the edges. Her lawyer looked calm. Too calm. Jen testified first. She didn't shake. She told them everything. The fake maps, the lifted signature, the plan to push fast before anyone noticed. Then Thomas, voice thick with regret. He admitted signing off on land that was never theirs. The forensic analyst was last. He projected the forged deed on a screen the size of a wall. Digitally altered, he said. Signature lifted. Metadata doesn't match the date. This is deliberate falsification. The judge didn't recess. She ruled right there. All HOA claims invalid. All permits revoked. Karen Worthington personally liable for fraud, falsification of records, and abuse of process. Damages awarded. Criminal referral ordered. The gavel hit like thunder. Karen didn't cry. She just stared at the table like the world had betrayed her. Spring came late that year. By the time the snow melted, Karen had taken a plea deal. Prison time. No early release. Harper Engineering folded. Licenses pulled. Trucks disappeared. Green Peaks Reserve dissolved itself within months. No board, no president. Just a neighborhood again. I rebuilt slow. New fence, stronger gate, fresh soil in the garden. I replanted the mulberry tree. It was smaller but it would grow. I had a custom iron gate welded and bolted it in place. Solid. Black. A brass plate at the center read one sentence. Private land, not HOA property. At night, I sat on the porch with Mabel at my feet and a bourbon in my hand. The land was quiet again. Real quiet this time. People still stop sometimes, ask if the property's for sale.